me just having a little fun there, jamming out a little bit, waiting for the next lesson. And we're going to try a little technique here. I don't know if you've noticed this, but hey, look at this. We got a better place to put the microphone. What do you think of that? Okay, so let us know how the quality sounds here. We're trying new stuff here at the studio here tonight. All right, so check it out. What we're going to do today, or tonight, it's tonight, you know, is we're going to talk about something called mixing modes, okay? I'm not talking about mixing drinks here. We're talking about mixing modes. And what are we talking about when I say that? Well, take a look at my board here, and I'm going to show you what I've written out. Okay, you can see that I've got two scales on the board here, okay? And it's a situation that might come up sometimes when you're playing a chord progression or some kind of an improvising situation, okay? You've got a Dorian, a minor 7 chord that might actually be operating in two different possible modes, okay? This D minor 7 chord here could actually exist in the key of C, okay? If you look at it, this D minor 7 chord comes from the key of C. It's the 2 chord, it's the 2nd degree of the key of C, okay? So I might have a progression that is based off of a D minor 7 chord coming from the key of C. Let's say it goes like this. Maybe it goes 2 to 5, and that's my progression, 2 to 5 in the key of C. So in this case, the scale that would be the appropriate scale would be called D Dorian. It would be like playing a C major scale from D up to the next octave of D. That would be essentially the notes of a C major scale. It would sound like D Dorian if we're playing over this progression. We're gonna be essentially sounding like we're playing C major when we play this. See how it fits perfectly over those two chords because it sounds like they go together. It sounds like they belong to the key of C. So that's why we're going to play the key of C over this D minor chord going to the G7. And there's what it would look like in terms of a scale. It would be called D Dorian. Okay, now I want you to see something else. Okay, so check this out though. D minor 7 also comes from the key of F, but check it out. It's the 6th degree, or it's the 6th chord in the key of F. All right? So D minor 7 can be the 2 chord in C, but it can also be the 6th chord in the key of F. Now, if we had a progression that, let's say, went B flat to C, and then went to D minor, that would essentially make our progression sound like it's in the key of D Aeolian. Okay, that's the major scale. That's the mode that's harmonized from the 6th degree of a major scale. Okay, so if you were hearing the progression now, do this. Now it feels like it's much more as if you're in the key of F. The B flat now suddenly becomes a good note because the B flat chord is in the progression. Okay, so this D minor chord can be in 2 keys at the same time. It just depends on where you hear it and the combination of chords you hear in the progression. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our progression now, and we're going to show you how effective this can be when you understand a little bit of theory and you understand essentially this is just like playing in 2 different keys over a progression. But it's really important to understand how this affects your fingering of your scale. So let's take a look at that. Okay, we're going to add the progression now in a sec. Okay, so before we get going into our progression here and mix these modes together, I want to make sure that we have one other new arpeggio to integrate into our study today. So these are the 2 minor 7 arpeggios that we've already learned. Okay, so we were going to play them in D minor just to keep it relevant to what we're doing. We would be right here. Or all the way up to the minor third. And we'd also have now this one available. Okay. Now we're going to introduce a new shape now. You can see the position of the arpeggio would be essentially in between those two forms I just played. We're going to have now an arpeggio that's built off the roots on the 6th string, the 3rd string, and the high E string right here. Okay, so now we've got root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7, root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7, root. Okay, so that puts us into this position. And this is coming from the G form, the open G shape. And of course, it's a minor shape. And if you recall, going back to the other lessons, we've had dominant 7 arpeggios here. And major 7 arpeggios here as well. Okay, so this is our 3rd edition of minor 7 arpeggios. So we've got 3 positions now back to back. We've got this one for D minor 7, the new one we just learned, and then the other one that we already know. Okay, so that gives us a pretty good area to connect together now. So we're going to use these arpeggios in combination with our new progression right here. This is going to blend our modes together. Okay, so what I've got here is our progression that goes from the key of C by using D minor 7 to G7, right? As we talked about, and you can even see a little bit of why that would work. These two chords together, D minor 7 and G7, outline the key of C and the notes that sound good against it. So when you hear these chords working together, you can hear the whole mode of D Dorian happening and why it sounds effective. Okay, so we would be in the key of C, let's say right here, like playing over these chords. And that would be like playing the C major scale right here. Of course, against D minor, it's going to sound like D Dorian. Now, when we go to the B flat chord, right away you can hear the mode changes because simply by introducing a B flat chord and putting it together with the C major chord, it now brings in the flavor of D Aeolian or F major. Because when you hear these combination of chords, B flat, C, and D minor, you can hear that it's actually now operating in the key of F, or D natural minor, or D Aeolian. I'm going to tune my guitar because I can hear I'm out of tune. Okay, so let's go ahead and check that out now with our progression and see how that's going to sound. But the thing of it is, it's just going to be the difference of one note. And that one note really has got to be emphasized on the beginning of the bar, because on the one note that changes, it's B flat is happening at the beginning of the bar, and that's important to make that strong. So you go from a progression that has a B natural by way of this scale, by the way of C, and then when you hit the B flat chord, you've got to basically play an F major scale, and you really want to make a big deal about that B flat note that changes, because it really makes the flavor of the key change clearly to the listener. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. So check this out. I'm just going to improvise a little bit and you'll hear how that sounds. Okay, here we go. 2, 3. that B natural again. Here's the B flat. Okay, so it might seem like a simple exercise, but it really does sound like you're playing through the right keys when you do that, and especially when you boldly hit the B flat at the beginning of the bar. It really sounds like you know where you're at, and it makes the progression sound that much more strong. Okay, so it's important to know how to mix modes when you have a situation like this, and not just play pentatonic all the way through, because you're not going to really achieve the sound of the chord progression very clearly that way. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to play over the progression, and I'm going to go back and forth between D Dorian and D Aeolian, and I'm going to do it simply by emphasizing the difference between the two keys, which is really just one note. It's the B natural going down to the B flat, but that has everything to do with how it sounds as we're playing over these two modes, okay? And it seems easy perhaps at first, but you've got to be confident with it when you're doing it, and you got to know where to find that note and how to make it. You got to know how to find it and make it musical when you're doing it, okay? So here we go. 2, 3. Okay, I'm gonna hit the microphone there. Anyway, you can hear that pretty much at the beginning of this bar, I really try to emphasize the B flat on the downbeat. Now, normally a root on a downbeat of a chord doesn't always sound all that strong or interesting, but it's important in this case because it's the note that defines the beginning of the new mode. The fact that we're playing D Aeolian, it makes the B flat note that much more important. Okay, so that's you could do it simply just with a scale exercise by simply playing eighth notes up and down, and you can make it just an exercise like this, and that would be okay too. Let's try this. So let's just play C major scale up and down, and try to emphasize the B natural on the beginning of the G chord, because that's a good note on the beginning of the G chord. It just sounds like it makes it sound like G7 much more strongly. Okay, so if you don't want to play double time like I'm playing, you can just play eighth notes, but I still want you to hit the B natural on the downbeat. Okay, let's try that. 3, 4. Try to hit the B natural here. Now here comes the B flat. I'm basically in F right here. here comes C again. See how clear that was? So, once again, all we're doing here is having fun mixing modes, but it's an important situation you're going to come across, and you're going to also want to be able to do yourself sometimes when you're improvising. You might have more than one possibility key situation to play over and improvise over, and you're going to want to take chances sometimes and make it more interesting by mixing modes yourself. Even when it's just a one chord situation, you want to be able to mix in a variety of different tonal colors over a chord progression, and sometimes this is the way you would do it. Okay? The last thing I'd like to integrate is that arpeggio that we just worked on just a few minutes ago. Let's see if we can get that arpeggio mixed into the other three shapes, or the other two shapes that we've learned. Okay? So this is what I want you to do. I want you to play the arpeggio on the beginning of the D minor 7. And then I want you to play the D Dorian scale from the root of the scale, and then the arpeggio again, and then the root of the scale, and then I just want you to play the D natural minor scale, and then the arpeggio when we go back to D. So pretty much every time you see D minor on this progression, I want you to play D minor 7 arpeggio. And if it's G7 here, just play the D Dorian scale. And if it's B flat and C here, play D Aeolian. Okay, let's see what that would sound like. Once again, it's just an exercise, but it's okay. Here we go. D arpeggio, 3, 4. Now the scale. Arpeggio, scale. Now natural minor scale. Now the arpeggio. Natural minor scale. Arpeggio. Now the new arpeggio. Up here. Now the scale. Arpeggio. Now the scale. Double time. Now the natural minor scale. Arpeggio. Natural minor scale for the B flat. The arpeggio. Now the last position, arpeggio, scale. Thought I double time at that time. The natural minor scale with the B flat. Arpeggio, I'm going to come down from the top this time. Natural minor scale. Okay, so there was our workout for this lesson. Combining modes together and really being sharp with our ear and being in tune with when the keys change and knowing what notes to emphasize when we're playing one mode to the next. And then in addition to that, adding that new arpeggio form in there. So let's be clear about what we've got. We've got 3 arpeggios now in minor 7th. We've got 5 shapes in major 7 and 5 in dominance. And now we're learning how to mix our modes together. So that was a good lesson. And I hope you had a good time with that one. And I'll see you on the next lesson. This is Dave Hill signing off. Talk to you soon.